The Blokebusters podcast is proud to be a member of the Pod Bros Network. You can find us, as well as other fantastic podcasts, such as Pencil and Ink Review, Another Damn Trivia Show, and The Language of Bromance at podbros.com, as well as on most other fine podcasting services. Now sit back, relax, and prepare to share and enjoy the Blokebusters podcast.
Welcome to another episode of Film Spotlight, our little look into what other people seem to like about films and seem to hate about film, because, you know, as much as we would like to think, it's not all about us. Wouldn't you agree, Brian?
No.
Oh, okay.
Wait, yes, I would. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, so your narcissism shining through there just a little, I think.
Completely veiled, yes.
Yes.
Couldn't agree more.
Alright, well, this time we have, and I'm determined to get this right without messing it up, Raging Buddha B-Movie Queen, Nora Crest, joining us. How are you doing?
I'm good, you got it right. That was perfect.
Yes.
Well done, Paul.
Thank you very much.
Now you see why I gave you the intro.
Yes, many hours in front of a mirror, just repeating and repeating.
You have to do like the rubber baby buggy bumpers
Yes.
to get my name straight.
Yeah, I am really in awe of what some of these actors and voice actors are able to do with some of these things. They're able to learn all of these incredibly difficult scripts and just do them ad nauseum again and again. And some of them are able to say ridiculous things, and then other people just will mess up saying, hello, how are you? They'll be like, hello, I didn't know, I messed up.
It's usually the easy stuff you mess up on, I think, more than the really tongue-twistery, complicated stuff.
Yeah, although there is a little bit of a correlation between how much you're trying to get it right and how difficult it is to see if you'll mess it up. Because obviously there are tongue twisters designed to mess you up. But I think there's a slight level of, if you're not trying too hard, you're able to kind of get away with it.
Yeah, probably more relaxed is better.
Yeah. And on that note.
And on that smooth transition.
Oh, yes. And then, random segue here. Well, we're here to talk about a film that you love and a film that you hate. So we'll, as usual, start with the film that you love. And
we have to start with the one I love first? All right.
We do.
Yeah,
yes.
Save the best for last.
Oh, really? Oh.
I mean, the worst.
Right,
the worst. Oh. All right. It's your show. I'm going to follow your rules here.
Right. Well, good.
Good. Because you have no choice, right, Paul?
Yes, exactly. And I can edit this as much as I like, so it works out. And as tradition dictates, myself and Brian need to hazard a guess as to the genre of the film that you picked. So, Brian, why don't you guess first?
I think I went first last time, so I think this is yours right now.
So this is the film
I want to play off of you.
Okay.
Yes, alright, so yes, this is the film that you like.
Okay, I've got it. I've got it in my mind.
I'm going to guess road movie.
Really?
Like a road trip type of movie?
Yeah, well, basically anything that is there on the road the majority of the time. So, yeah.
See, God, that's hard to say. Not really.
Okay, well, Brian.
Okay, clues here. All right. I am going to go with, just because I know it's completely wrong, I'm going with theatrical musical.
Okay, no, it's not a musical. No.
So it's not Grease. Good.
No.
Shit.
Alright then, well, I'm going to accept the not really as still a win, because clearly there's a road in it, so there we go. So what,
well,
so why don't you...
You know why I said not really when you know what the movie is, but anyway.
Okay, well, why don't you let us know what one you picked then?
What movie? I picked 1997's Luc Besson's classic, The Fifth Element.
Ooh, good choice.
That's why I said not really, because he is driving a taxi, but he's not on a road. He's in the air.
Yes, very
and
true.
And flying spaceships, so it's kind of a road movie. But
no, Paul's wrong. Not really.
Come on.
It takes place in the taxi, but
there's a hell of a lot of
need
traveling.
roads, Paul. All right. So yeah,
there is a hell of a lot of traveling in this. So.
Without a doubt, there's a ton of traveling. I mean, the reason why I picked this movie, because you're like, a movie that you love. Okay, there's like a bajillion movies that I love because I see tons and tons of movies. But I picked this movie because honestly, this is the movie for me where no matter where it is in the movie, if I'm flipping channels and it's on HBO or Showtime and it's at any point in the film, I will watch it. And if I feel sick, I will watch it. Like, this is my go-to movie, comfort food. Like, anytime I need to pick me up, I will watch this. And also, I have to say, it was kind of a tie between this and another Luc Besson film, Lucy, which came out a few years ago, which I also loved.
Really?
Oh, I love that movie. My kids are obsessed with it, but
absurd as it, I mean, don't get me wrong, I enjoy that film, but it is absurd.
Oh, but I've seen this so many times. I mean, I've seen this probably, honestly, like 200 times. This film alone. Because I love it. Film. Yeah, The Fifth Element.
Okay.
Yeah, fair enough. This is definitely one of those films that was on TV a lot when I was growing up. So, I can understand that. And I do think, if I'm remembering correctly, this film possibly holds the record for the longest from inception to coming out, because he wrote it when he was still a teenager and he was almost 40 when the film came out.
Yeah, and he also invented the entire language that Mia speaks in the film. And they would rehearse it in between takes and stuff.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the few languages that actually holds up as a language.
Yeah, it's got like proper grammar and everything. I mean, he really, and you feel that when you watch the movie. This is a whole concept. And the thing about it, even though it's, almost 20 years later now, obviously some of the things that you see now are so dated, but at the time it came out, it was super futuristic. In 1997, but you see those like lame headsets and like, some of the stuff, it makes me laugh, and even the little puppet thing that's in, Zorg's office and is kind of like super like rejected Muppet puppet, but I don't care. I still love it. But a lot of the other effects are really good. They obviously did a lot of VFX/practical effects for this film, and it comes off really well. But the story itself, I think, holds up really well over 20 years. And I think 20 years from now, Sameka will watch this and still enjoy it.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Now, obviously, we've all seen this, but just in case someone is listening to this who hasn't seen it, why don't you sell them on this film? Why specifically should they watch it?
Well, first of all, this is, Bruce Willis when he still had a tiny bit of hair that was actually his left. So there's that. Mm-hmm. But it's also a film where he is definitely a hero in the film, but he's actually not the hero of the film. And you see him a little more in depth than some of his just straight action roles where it's just him with the smarmy comment and the smirk and then punching someone in the face kind of thing. So you see a little more emotion from him, which I really liked. Of course, Gary Oldman, everything he does, except for Red Riding Hood, totally brilliant. And funnily enough, he didn't really like this role. He thought it was just comic book and over the top until he did Red Riding Hood, where he realized that was probably he apologized.
He didn't know what over the top was until he went over the top.
Until he went over the top. But, and then of course, and I'm going to butcher her name because I don't know how to properly pronounce it, but Mia Jovovich, as Lilu, is so fantastic in this movie that after this movie was made, people really thought that she was like foreign, but she's American. And they thought, she didn't speak English. And of course, she's amazingly gorgeous. But as the hero of the film, you see, not only is she kick ass and beautiful, but she shows a tremendous vulnerability and sort of makes you appreciate what humanity is all about, like the best of humanity. And this film, I think, shows kind of where we're going a little bit in the future, even 20 years after it was made. And it made me like sort of rethink my humanity as a person 20 years ago when I was 20 and I watched this film for the first time. I thought, you know, like I needed to do more kind of to be the, you know, supreme being kind of thing and like, you know, be the hero. And when I watch it now, I get something different from it every time that I watch it. But I think it's just such a beautiful film and sort of a love letter to humanity from Luc Besson, like why we're worth it, why we should work together and be good people kind of a thing.
Yeah, I can see that. And one of my favorite things about rewatching this as I go through my life is every time I rewatch it, I start to recognize someone else in it from something I have then seen.
Right.
So the first time I watched this, it was sort of my introduction to Bruce Willis and Gary Oldman and Ian Holm and Chris Tucker. And
oh wow! Oh, he's so brilliant. Chris Tucker's
great in that.
He's one of the greatest characters of all time in a film ever. I mean, I wish they would do like a second one just so Chris Tucker could be Ruby Rhod again.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, we're slightly jumping ahead to the last question we normally do for this, which is, if there was a sequel, what would you do? I would love to see a parallel film told from Ruby Rod's perspective.
Somewhat like an Ender's Shadow or, you know, something along those lines. Yeah.
You get to see him in the days leading up to him getting on the ship and then all of the stuff going through his head. There are questions.
I mean, obviously at the end of the film, Bruce and, you know, and Corbin Dallas and Lilu are together. So what does that mean? She is like, she's not human. She's more than human. And she's engineered for one purpose, which is basically fighting off the evil that comes every 3,000 years. So my question would be like, when are, you know, the people come to pick her up and put her back in her little case to like hibernate for the next 3,000 years? Because that's her whole job. Like, they're not going to have babies. They're not, you know, there's no little tiny Lilus running around and stuff like that. I think she goes back in the case, and I think you could do a sequel that's 3,000 years in the future. And, you know, but at this point, Dallas Corbin's descendants and Ruby Rod's descendants and all the people that were like, you know, involved and the president and stuff, they could all like be like their own little cult that they, you know, been keeping this watch for 3,000 years and, you know, something like that could happen. But I don't, you know, I mean, the movie has a happy ending, obviously, because they're together, but it's unrealistic because she needs to keep doing which, I mean, otherwise the Earth's just going to be destroyed 3,000 years from now. I mean, that's kind of sad.
Yeah. Well,
yes.
You know, sorry, I fell in love with when you're just going to be toast in 3,000 years. You know?
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing, one of many things I've read online is, films that ending to have unintended consequences and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. This one, and obviously we're spoiling now, but the end of this one, the Earth has a second moon. Which that is going to destroy the Earth. Like,
it would be cool to look at, but right, our tidal patterns, what would that do to it? You know, I mean, what would happen to does the ocean just get sucked off the planet because of the second moon? I mean, I'm not an astrophysicist. My grandfather was an astrophysicist, and if he was still alive, I would ask him what would happen if we had a second moon in orbit.
And then also the amount of gravity that they would have, the two moons would come together eventually. There would be a collision.
But see, you know what I thought was interesting was like, this gives a backstory to like how we got our moon in the first place.
Yeah.
Because this was like, that's how it got there the first time because she fought off the evil 3,000 years earlier and it turned into the moon. So I thought, well, that's kind of cool because that was a question I always had as a kid. Like, how the hell did that thing just start floating around outside? Like, where did it come from? And another, I thought of this movie when, what was that show's name on TV where the people were here from another planet and then they were hiding the whole time and they didn't age? Oh, man.
I think I know what you're talking about, but I can't.
You know what I'm talking about? Because Blair Underwood was the He was the president of the United States.
Yeah.
Do you remember? And his wife was actually one of the people. I'm going to find it here real quick.
It's not V, is it?
No, V. Oh God, I love V. And I like the reboot that they even did. The Event. That's what it was. The Event. It was one season. And the storyline was that these people had come from another planet many, like forever ago. And they had gotten kicked out essentially, by the Neanderthals and all these other people. But they hadn't really, they were still like, they blended in and all this stuff. And then at the very end, the last episode, their home planet is dying and they need to teleport it to Earth to save the population because their planet is going to be engulfed by their sun. So they teleport it and basically it's like right next to the moon, and they explained that the moon was their first planet that they were on. And they went to this other planet after they got kicked off of Earth and all this other stuff. So I thought, okay, well, this is like borrowing a little bit from, Fifth Element in terms of that storyline, but it's so specific that most people wouldn't be like, didn't they do that in the Fifth Element? Except for me, because I've seen it 200 times. But that was a great show. It only lasted one season, which was super bummer. Like Flash Forward, which was another great one where you have all this other stuff. But, sometimes when things are too science fiction-y, I think that they're ahead of their time. And so they just get, like Almost Human. That was a great show. And that got canceled and I couldn't believe it. But, usually if it show's on NBC and I like it, then it just gets canceled. That's like guaranteed for me.
Yeah. Well, one old British show I would recommend and very sci-fi is the BBC TV version of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Ooh.
It is wonderful. Anyone that knows Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy will like the show.
I'll have to check that out. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, there was only 6 episodes, and the BBC decided not to pick it up for a second season, even though it was just so well done. And
that's so frustrating when you have a really well written and acted show, and then it for whatever reason, it just dies, and you're like, why? And then things like 2.5 Men stay on the air for 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one thing to think of when you're watching it is, for those people that don't know, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is an actual book, as it were. Like it's a different in every version, but it's like a digital book, kind of like an early Kindle, as it were, that you can look up all of these facts and stuff about all the planets that you might go to. And they show on screen the entries and stuff like that. Every single letter and every single picture is hand-drawn, and then they filmed it by removing black pieces of paper from each letter and taking a shot of the frame, and then moving it again and taking another shot. It's all hand-drawn and then shot on film. So it was a really cool show, and the film was good. I actually quite enjoyed it, and another interesting retelling, but yeah, the TV show is by far my favorite out of all of the Hitchhiker stuff.
Wow, I'm definitely gonna check that out then. That sounds awesome, actually. Oh, I love kitschy stuff like that.
Yeah, and it was very much a product of the times as well. And it is very English. Like
I love British TV. One of my favorite shows right now is Vicious, which is brilliant. If you're not watching it, you should tune in for that because it's so funny. Have you seen it at all?
No, I haven't.
I have not. I think I've heard bits and pieces about it, but I haven't had the chance to really watch it.
First of all, it's Derek Jacobi.
Ian McKellen. Yeah.
Right. And then you have, of course, from Game of Thrones.
Ramsay. Yeah.
You have Ramsay. But it was, cause I swear to God, the first episode when I saw him on it, I was like, run! Like I thought, oh my God, he's gonna be a psychopath. And he's so funny on this show. He's hilarious.
That's great. I'd love to see him do something different. Yeah.
Just so that you can appreciate him as an actor and not want to murder him in the streets when you see him, if you ever see him. He's so good on
I'm able to separate reality and make yes.
Some people are not, though.
No.
Some people are. Poor
Yeah, I
Tom
totally get
Felton,
that.
you know, after he was on Harry Potter, people like used to spit on him in the streets of London and
Oh
stuff.
my god. Yeah, I can recognize that he's a fantastic actor, but yeah, I'm looking forward to checking that out now.
Yeah, definitely check it out. I mean, and also Ian McKellen. I mean, it's like
Oh yeah, I mean,
Eric
he does
Jacobi
no wrong.
so funny. They're hilarious.
Yeah, I'm definitely
I
going to
used
have
to watch
to look into that one.
Served as a Kid, which I loved. Did you ever watch that?
Which one? Say?
Are You Being Served?
No. Everyone
No.
seemed to, that is, everyone in America, when they first start asking me about British television, that is what everyone asks
You know
me
why?
about.
Because it was like the one British show besides like Monty Python stuff that was on PBS here that we could get. So,
Right.
so it's you know, like we didn't see any of the Hugh Laurie stuff. So when he came here and he was House, you know, on American television, we were like, oh, he's a British comedian? What? Like,
Yeah.
it didn't make any sense to us. We were like, he's funny? How did that happen? Like, he's a total,
Yeah, that's the thing. I want people to ask me, like, rather than say, "Oh, did you watch this?" I want people to ask me, like, what they should watch if they like that type of thing, because I will tell you, obviously, Monty Python, Hitchhiker's Galaxy is great. A bit of Fry and Laurie is just phenomenal. They are so good together. It's one of my favorite things that they ever did was they start doing a bit where they read listener mail, and it's someone who's saying, like, you know, you're always going on about Margaret Thatcher, who was the Prime Minister in England at the time, but you never suggest anything to replace her. And they say, here, it's a coat hanger. There you go, that'll replace her. And then at that point, Hugh Laurie says he's written a savage, angry song about jars that get separated from their lids. And so he goes over to the piano and just starts playing this song, which is just him saying the words, "Where is the lid?" over and over and over. Meanwhile, in the background, Stephen Fry looks over at the sofa and picks up a lid for the jar. And so he comes around, he's trying to tell Hugh Laurie, "Look, I've got it here. It's right here. This is the lid." And he's not paying any attention to it. And so he puts it onto the jar, and he's still playing the song, so he ends up just punching him in the stomach, at which point he collapses on the floor. And it transitions into a eulogy on behalf of Hugh Laurie, now that he has passed and moved on. It's just
Oh my god.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and those guys were brilliant, and it's always fun to see them working together. Of course, now that we've finished talking about British television, how about we
Have we? Must we?
Yeah.
All right,
I
now
know.
you guys are going to guess the movie that I loathe.
Well, not quite. We typically try not to do that, but I will ask the one other question that I have written down for this thing, which is, obviously we talked about bits and pieces from the film, but is there a favourite moment or scene from The Fifth Element that you are always looking forward to, or that always gets you?
Ooh. There are a couple. That is it. I did not expect that question.
No one ever does. I ask it every single time, and nobody expects it.
There's a couple moments. I love, when obviously she falls, like, you know, the police are chasing her. She jumps out of her little containment thing, and then, jumps through the little thing, and she's running around the pipes or whatever, and she's on the outside of the building, and she has no identification. They don't know who she is. And she jumps off the building and crash lands into, Bruce Willis's taxi. And he's freaking out, all this stuff. And then when the police finally catch up to them, and they're surrounded, and he's like, "Oh, I can't be part of this." And, you know, it's terrible. And she sees the little, like, poster of the poor kid, and it says, "Please help." And she's like, "Please help." And she's just like crying, and she just looks so sad. And then Bruce Willis just like punches it and takes off, with her in the cab, and it's totally ridiculous, and they're driving all over the place. I love that part, because you see that this guy, even though he's just sort of like this cabbie bum kind of guy, he's like heart of gold. And of course I love, the other part that makes me sad is like when she's learning everything about Earth since she hasn't been there, and she realizes that we're so destructive, and it makes her so sad. And it was like when all those images started flashing on the screen before her, I started crying before they cut to her face crying.
Yeah.
And it's like, you have to look at humanity, in sort of like a real kind of like scale way. You know what I mean? Like there's all this crap, but there's all this really good stuff, like that is redeemable also. And it is hard to make that choice. Like, should we be saved? Or should I just be like, I don't feel like it today. I'm tired, you know? So I like the journey that she goes through at that point. I think those are two really important. I mean, obviously I like the end too, but you know, don't want to totally spoil it in case somebody hasn't seen the film. They should watch it.
Although one thing I do love, I've read several times, is that surely before you reach the W's, you'll have run into some of the more horrific side of like concentration camps.
Oh yeah. But
genocide.
My favorite scene, just because it's comical, is like the scene where they're trying to get onto the ship to take them to the cruise ship. And and you know, first the kid's there and he takes the pass and she's like, Lilu Dallas, multi-pass. And she just keeps saying multi-pass. And then he's like, she knows it's a multi-pass. Like, I don't know why, but whenever my kids are repeating something, I always say that to them. Like, I know it's a multi-pass. Like, you know. It's so great because Bruce Willis is just so New York in this movie. Just unapologetically.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And
sort of like I think this is just after like Moonlighting, so he's still sort of like full New Yorker, you know, diehard New Yorker guy.
Well, I mean, he's a taxi driver, so of course he's got to be in New York. And one thing I find really interesting with the whole thing is that they never actually explain what's going on with all the rubbish at the airport because it got cut.
Right, it's just gigantic piles as high as the ceiling.
And the entire reason behind it is because they were on strike.
Oh, okay.
All of the garbage workers were on strike.
That you don't notice the first time watching, but you know, like in the fight scene, when he comes out of the theater, all of a sudden his shirt's torn and one sleeve's off, and you're like, when did that happen? You know, there's other massive fight thing that obviously got cut for time. I mean, there's plenty other, you know, action sequences, but.
Yeah, and I was trying to think as well what my favorite moment from it is, and I've narrowed it down to two of them. And one of them is just Gary Oldman walking away after he's given them all the guns, and he's just explaining that any killer in the world would have immediately asked about the little red button.
Right.
And just that whole thing, and then the payoff as well at the end is great. And then also when they've arrived at, what is it? Playa Laguna, or whatever the place is called.
Playa Laguna is the opera singer. They're on Planet Floss, which is
thank you.
In their ship.
So it's been too long. I can.
Lost in Paradise is the name of the cruise ship they're on that's cruising around the planet.
So they arrive, and then the guy's like, "Oh, something's in the in the circuitry. Hang on, I'll check." And then it's just a priest that's upside down, just like, "Oh, are we there?" Like, oh, thank you. For whatever reason, that always gets me.
I know, and they don't even do anything like, oh, that's totally normal. There's just a guy who's stowed away in the electronics for the whole flight.
Yeah, and he should have been just put straight into jail or something at that point. But
I know,
but
right?
he didn't.
I love that, and I love the cherry scene with Gary Oldman. That's one of the best scenes. Yeah. Where he's like telling the priest off about, you know, all the things that basically destruction is the reason why we should have anything. It's the whole cause of everything on the planet. And then, you know, he's choking to death. Yeah. I just think that's like a total perfect like scene that sums up the whole movie, is like, what side of this are you going to be on, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And that little puppet thing is so wackadoodle, though. It's so creepy weird.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Every time I watch it, I'm like, I don't even want to think about what the purpose of that weird animal in his desk is. Because it's got a snout, and it's just gross looking. I don't understand it.
Yeah. what about you, Brian? Have you thought of one? Or
favorite? Oh, you know what? I have not. This may come as a shock. I have not seen this since 1997. So, yeah. So I'm struggling for the details here.
In that case, I would recommend saying any scene Chris Tucker is in.
Exactly.
Any scene Chris Tucker's in.
When he,
there we go.
I mean, I remember bits and pieces, but I really need to revisit it.
I mean, one of Chris Tucker's best scenes, though, has to be when the takeover initially happens on the ship. Mm-hmm. He's like, if anybody can hear me, I'm in the front row. And he's just like, and he accidentally shoots the guy's head. Because I just got nervous. You know, like he's just freaking out all the time and he's screaming. Like when he holds that note, when he's screaming for like a minute straight.
Oh, when he's saying the word 10 and he doesn't finish it.
Yeah. He's so brilliant. That radio guy, I mean, that character, Ruby Rod, is just like, it's just so perfect. And I don't know how Bruce Willis kept a straight face, honestly, with all the stuff he was doing. I mean, that
Okay, in that case, I'm going to have to change my answer to the introduction of Ruby Rod.
Yes! Where
I
he's
think,
photographing it with the paintbrush?
Yeah. Just that whole first broadcast is like, that's reason enough to see the film.
It's so brilliant in his like skin type leopard unitard that he's wearing.
Yeah, he's basically trying to be Prince, right?
I think it's like a combination of Prince and like RuPaul. It's like something on that level of like outrageousness. You know what I mean?
Alright, well, I think this is officially the longest we've ever gone on about the film that someone loves. So, there we go. And so, inevitably, we must sink into the other side, and it's the film that you do not like. And I say every single time, we're not even going to bother to guess, because, as you well know, bad films come in every single genre on the planet, and there's so many of them.
Every week.
Yes. So, why don't you just let us know what is the film that you do not like very much?
Okay, well, this film is 2008's There Will Be Blood.
Okay.
There is gonna be blood, Nora. All right.
I don't rule that I don't watch Daniel Day-Lewis movies. And the only movie that has ever won me over for him as a
saying Lincoln.
Yes, was Lincoln. Because it's the only film he doesn't do his number one acting gimmick. And his number one acting gimmick is to yell really loud, like half of his dialogue. In every single movie he does that. I don't care. My Left Foot, he's like, you know, Last of the Mohicans, I will always find you. And in this movie, of course, I drink your milkshake, you know, which is the best scene in the whole movie. That's the only scene ever worth watching. And I dare say Bill Hader did it better when he did a parody of it on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, that scene is responsible for about 1% of conversations that occurred in the house I was in at university.
I'm sure.
Yeah, everything turned into drinking milkshake or drinking whatever it is. It would even go so far as like, I drink your spaghetti when someone.
But did you guys like this movie? Is that what you're telling me?
I love this movie. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I have not seen it.
I do love this film.
The Lobster, because that one has disturbed me on so many levels, and I think my mom and I are the only two people on the planet that didn't like it. But I had to go with this one just because I just wanted to bitch about Daniel Day-Lewis for like 5 minutes.
Okay, fair. So we've got one person that doesn't like it.
Why did you like it though? What is there to fucking like in this movie? It's terrible.
No.
First of all, the opening 5 minutes of no dialogue and the slowest.
Well, it's more than that. It's about a full reel. It's about 15 minutes of no dialogue.
It's so terrible. It wasn't even good imagery, and this thing won for best cinematography, and I don't understand that.
This is going to get interesting.
It didn't win Best Picture. It didn't win Best Picture because No Country for Old Men won Best Picture, and that's what should have won. But of course, if Daniel Day-Lewis does a movie, he's winning the Academy Award. That's what happens. So, I'm the one just for that wig in No Country for Old Men. Saying that.
Okay, so yeah, we're gonna have to try and figure out a way of doing this because we have one person that clearly really likes it, one person that hates it, and one person who has never seen it. So
Who's ambivalent? Yeah.
Don't see it. Don't see it. Don't waste
No,
your time.
I am not the guest, so I will take the back seat, of course.
No, it's okay. I would love to hear why you like it. I mean, I loved Paul Dano in the film. I thought he gave a tremendous performance. But I really loathed this film. It was just Daniel Day-Lewis doing his usual bullshit, and I just found it stupid.
Okay.
And I don't like, I hate to say it, Paul Thomas Anderson really doesn't do it for me as a filmmaker.
Really?
I know that he's married to Maya Rudolph and they make beautiful babies and that kind of thing. But in general, I'm not I saw The Master, and I grew up in Scientology, so I thought he did a pretty good job with that particularly. But again, so boring. So boring. I just want to take a nap in his movies.
I will admit, he is hit and miss with me. I'm not like an all-in PTA guy. I evaluate him on a case-by-case basis, and I thought he nailed it on this one, but obviously we disagree.
Well, why did you think he nailed it? What about the movie do you love that?
I will fully admit I have a Daniel Day-Lewis bias. I think he's a fantastic actor. I love him in pretty much anything he does. Gangs of New York, no.
Such a terrible.
That is a terrible movie. And yes, I will. I'm fully on board with agreeing with that. But I do think he was one of the best parts of that movie. Even though his character was so over the top.
Chemistry between Leo and Cameron was the best part. Jeez Louise.
Cameron was awful though. But
oh my god, so miscast. So miscast.
The only worst period actress would be Winona Ryder. Possibly.
No, she was so great in Little Women. Stop it. That's
no,
the best
not
version.
Little Women. Yeah, okay.
That's Little that's out there, and there's 4 versions of that movie, and that is the best one. And you want to know why? Because it's the only one that is clear that she was never in love with her neighbor. That they were really just friends. And all the other versions, you're like, you're such a bitch. You've been leading him on this whole time.
Yeah.
It's the first one that was totally clear that they were just friends and he was mad for her. But she was like, oh, you're like my brother. That's gross. So I'll give it to her for that because I believe that they were, and that aspect. But yeah. I know. Winona Ryder is hit and miss, but I love her anyway. She's a NorCal.
No. Yeah, I love her in some Mr. Deeds.
But come on, I mean, really, Daniel Day-Lewis does it for you. You're just all.
I'm not going to say I'm all in it either. If I hear he's attached to a picture, I'm all in. No, once again, case by case. But I think he's more hit than miss. I think
I did love Lincoln.
Yes, he does have his. I'm sorry.
Lincoln. I loved him.
I absolutely love
I thought he
Lincoln,
was brilliant. I thought the overall movie was fantastic. I mean, and I didn't even care that it was 5 hours long. I didn't even care. So I thought, him and Sally Field were so wonderful as the Lincolns. It was so beautiful, the whole film.
We've gone on record as saying that there was only one problem we have with the film, and that is that they did not hard cut when he was doing the slow walk away.
That was such a bad choice. Yeah.
I think everyone
we don't
in the
need
world
to see the end of
had
that
same
story.
thought. We don't need the theater shot. No one needs that. We all know what happens next.
And we don't need the misdirection of the kid at the wrong thing. They completely went off the rails there.
It was I agree with you 100%. That should have been the end. Roll credits. Everybody's crying already. You know what's happening.
Yeah, we know what's going to happen. Yeah.
It's in the same thing when people make a film about JFK. You just show them getting in the car at Dallas. I'm done. Boom. It's over.
Yeah.
I don't need to see the rest. We all know what happens.
Exactly.
Although,
I will say I did like Boogie Nights, which is one Paul Thomas Anderson film I can get behind and say yes.
Along with a large portion of the male audience, I think.
Well, yeah. I'm sure you'd be hard pressed to find a dude who has seen the movie. I mean, obviously if they haven't seen it, but you'd be hard pressed to find a dude who didn't like that film.
Fair
I mean,
enough.
I haven't met one yet, so.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I was just going to say, like, I looked up Paul Thomas Anderson's filmography before, and the only film of his that I have seen from beginning to end is Boogie Nights.
Really?
Really?
Yeah, I haven't seen There Will Be Blood, I haven't seen The Master, I stopped watching Inherent Vice after 15 minutes, and...
You made it a whole 15 minutes into that.
I did, yes. I
saw the preview and I was like, it's too weird. Like, I was like,
I like weird, but for some reason this was the wrong kind of weird, I guess.
Really?
I've seen Inherent... Oh, go ahead.
You saw Inherent Vice? You saw the
No,
whole
I've
thing?
seen it 3 times, and I still have no idea what's going on. And no, because I'm determined to understand it, and I can't.
You're trying to make sense of it?
I think I've given up now, that it's just nonsense.
I think it's the kind of movie you're supposed to be on acid while you're watching it, and then it'll make sense.
Those days are gone, so I guess I'm just going to be
It is not for sober people, that movie, I think.
Uh-huh. I can enjoy bits of it, but oh my lord, it is not utter nonsense.
Well, the whole trailer to me looked like nonsense. I was like, I don't even understand what's supposed to be what? Like, that's... So, his mind is a unique mind, that's for sure. And I will say this about Daniel Day-Lewis. I will give it up to him 100,000,000% for probably being the most method actor that has ever existed. I mean, during the fucking Crucible, he built a goddamn house using, like, tools from the era for himself on the set, and he lived in it.
Yeah, Daniel
Like,
Day-Lewis.
he's hardcore. I will give it up to him. He's he takes every role very seriously, and he puts 110% in it. And, for that, I give it up to him, but I don't always enjoy his performances. Except for Lincoln. So I hope he does another film. Apparently his next thing coming up is an untitled Paul Thomas Anderson fashion project. I don't even want to know what that's going to look like. That's going to be freaky.
Maybe he's going to play Jean-Paul Gaultier or something. I don't know.
I don't know.
I'd say I enjoyed him as much in There Will Be Blood as I did in Lincoln.
Really?
Yeah. Yep.
I just thought his character was so ugly. There wasn't one redeeming... For me, like, I like a good bad guy, but there's not... Since he's the main character, there's not one redeeming thing about this guy. There's not one reason for me to like him.
And that's what, and that's kind of what I loved. I loved the blind ambition at all costs. Even though that's deplorable and ugly, I thought he portrayed that so well. The disowning of his son and, just... everything just to be successful. His idea of success, I thought he was fantastic.
Okay.
Well,
I don't know. I mean, I would be willing to give this film another look, but there's certain films that, like, this is one of the films I vowed I would never, ever, ever watch again. Along with another film that I love, like, for example, 12 Years a Slave. I loved that film, but I can never see that again.
Oh no, there's some that you love, but one and done. Yeah, it's
one and done. Like, I won't even buy the DVD because I don't even want to look at the DVD. It's going to make me just bawl my eyes out. But it was such a brilliant film, and I'm so glad that it was made and that Lupita Nyong'o was introduced to the world.
Oh, absolutely.
And, she's the queen of everything. Like, I'm glad. I just want her to be in everything now and give every speech about everything. And if aliens ever do come down to planet Earth, I've decided that Lupita, Morgan Freeman, and Dakota Fanning should meet them. And that's the emissaries of Earth. That's who we're sending to represent, and the Dalai Lama. And they can just all go, and they can, that's Earth. And that, maybe we won't get eaten alive by the people that land here or something.
Can you care to elaborate on the Dakota Fanning choice? I'm with you on the first two.
She's one of the few child actors, she and her sister Elle, who aren't coked out, crazy people.
Okay, I gotcha.
And I fell in love with her when she was a tiny little girl in I Am Sam. And after that movie came out, she was on Oprah. And she walks out, Oprah introduces her, and she hands Oprah this box. And Oprah's like, what's this? And she's like, oh, I brought you a gift because my mother told me you never show up anywhere without a gift for the host. And Oprah opens it and she's like, "Oh my God, this is a beautiful scarf." And she's like, "Thanks, I made it." And she's like, "I'm sorry, you made this?" And she's like, "Yeah, I knitted it." And she's like, "I'm sorry, how did you learn to knit?" She's like, "Oh, I took it up when I was 5. You know,
Oh, yeah.
That's the kind of kid Dakota Fanning was. Like, when she was 5, she was learning how to knit.
I think I'm not even using IMDb here. I think was she like the little girl on Cider House Rules?
Was she?
Like, I think, like one of the girls at the orphanage. I swear I'm not even using, I think that was when I first became aware of her. If it's not her, then I'm wrong, but.
Well, she was on a few TV shows, bunch of TV shows, one episode. And then her first movie was I Am Sam. And then, which was 2001, and Cider House Rules is before that. So I don't think she was in Cider House Rules.
Okay. I don't know who, yeah.
Maybe it was her sister. They look a lot alike, except for now, of course, Elle's like super tall and Dakota's like barely 5 feet tall, so.
Yeah.
It's not based on her body of work, which is very diverse, and sometimes it's been bad, sometimes it's been really, 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 really good. But it's just based on her as a human. I think she's an excellent example of humanity.
I personally think that Jennifer Lawrence would be a better choice.
I love Jennifer Lawrence.
J-Lo.
She's on my list of people that I would like to just like, do you have, like, in my mind, I have a list of people that I would love to just sit down and like have coffee with and just talk about everything, not just movies and TV, but just about life. Like, Jennifer Lawrence is definitely on the list. All the people I mentioned is the emissaries of Earth, but I mean, other people that I've idolized forever, like Drew Barrymore or Alyssa Milano. I would just love to get like such a diverse, totally like range of people. Lupita Nyong'o I would just love to talk to her about like the universe and find out everything that she knows, because I'm convinced she pretty much knows everything.
Fair enough.
But Daniel Day-Lewis is not on that list of people.
Well,
he would turn
I
up
would
in
encourage you
character
to
somewhere.
rewatch the baptism scene, or with Paul Dano and Daniel Day-Lewis in the church.
Yes, that's very
it's an amazing scene where, I mean, you have Paul Dano just coming full force at him, and just Daniel Day-Lewis just so over the top, and just, yes, I accept the blood, yes, give me the blood, yeah.
That scene was, I mean, listen, those two playing off each other, that was great. And if it had been more of the two of them in the movie, I think, together, it probably would have been in my opinion, a much better film, because those two people, I mean, I think Paul Dano is such an amazing actor.
Yes, absolutely.
I really think, I mean, if you didn't see, the Beach Boys movie that he was in last year, which
Love and Mercy, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was so good. He was so good in that. I mean, he's pretty much good in everything. I mean, I've seen him in other stuff that I didn't even really like the movie, but I liked him. So, I didn't like the movie, but I did like Paul Dano. And, had there been more Paul Dano, I probably would have not hated this movie. But just I don't know. I just hated the whole thing. I went into it thinking it was going to be something very different. And so what I thought from the trailer was not what I saw on the screen. And that happens a lot.
Well, in that case, that actually kind of goes very nicely into the question I like to ask, which is, what would you do if someone came to you with this film and unlimited budget and said, we want you to fix it? Ooh. How would you change the film so that you did like it?
Well, first I would burn it. And then I would like watching that. That would be very fun.
Well, drinking a milkshake.
First of all, I wouldn't have, and this is the same complaint that I have, by the way, with Quentin Tarantino. And I almost picked a Quentin Tarantino film just because I like his films, but he refuses to write a script without the N-word every 25th word in the script. And I find that to be a cheap trick and annoying. And if Quentin ever hears this, I challenge you to write a script that has no ethnic, takedowns in the entire script. But anyway, I would cut a lot of the sweeping cinematics where it's just nothing's going on, but we're just sort of seeing dust fly by, which really weren't necessary and made the film about 45 minutes too long. And I'd probably, if I was going to keep Daniel Day-Lewis in the film, which, obviously you want because people love him, I would probably have to have him dial it back like a couple notches and keep it more for the very like the baptism scene. Take it to 11 in that. That's fine. And I drink your milkshake. Keep that at 11, but the rest of the film needs to be a little more from him subdued kind of a thing, because I felt like he was just at 11 the whole film. You know what I mean? And just too much. I don't even know how he didn't have a heart attack, honestly. I mean, that character was so angry and just so cranky about life in general. I don't know. And maybe that's how that person was, because I know it's sort of based on history and stuff like that. But I can't imagine that a person that was that gigantic of a douche asshole would have been as successful as he apparently was.
Well, I mean, it is interesting because obviously you get not a huge number of films, but there are some films out there where you do have someone who is just completely like unforgivable. Yeah. And most of the time those characters can work because, there are some people in society that don't have any real redeeming qualities, and I actually kind of like to think John Travolta in Swordfish would fall into that. Because he is just a flat out bad guy out for number one, and that's it. That's all he is.
That's true. That is like his most like kind of bad guy film that he ever did, I think. I mean, I don't know. Well, no, besides The General's, that was another one where he was kind of a dick. Oh, or what was the one with him and Christian Slater? Broken Arrow. God, that
was it. Yeah, John Woo, and then unless you want to count him playing Castor Troy as his, playing Nick Cage in Face Off.
Yes, I was going to say he got to play both there.
Yeah, but like what you just said, like, for example, again, bringing up 12 Years a Slave, Michael Fassbender is probably one of the greatest bad guys of all time. But for a moment, you see a tiny bit of humanity in that guy. And I just felt like there wasn't any humanity in Daniel Day-Lewis. You know what I mean? Like, not even a glimmer that he's possibly human.
Mm-hmm. You mean just in this film, or?
Yeah, no, not in general. He's obviously a lovely human.
Okay. Well, no. I would say, like, when his son becomes deaf, when he's trying to comfort him, he runs for his son.
Right.
And I thought that was, showed his humanity there. That when his son is just like screaming and he's trying to hush him to quiet. I felt it there.
I guess that incident sort of just broke that character, and that was the end of his humanity, because he couldn't, now everything was terrible for him.
He couldn't manage after that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I get what you're saying. I can see that, like, thinking back on the film, but it's just, I don't know. There was just so much that was, as a parent, that scene murdered me, thinking about something horrible like that happening to one of my children. That's just, I don't even want to picture that. That's terrible.
Yeah.
Kind of a situation, but, I loved him in Lincoln. I'm going to give him that.
All right, we can come to terms on that.
And he hasn't done anything since that. It's been it's been 4 years since Lincoln. Not a peep.
Yeah, he like somewhat semi-retired, like
I think
10, 15 years ago, and then he
jumped back in.
Yeah, jumped back in for a couple roles. Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. He's tricky. You never know. He might just pump it, but he doesn't pump movies out. You know what I mean? He doesn't ever have like more than one thing come out in a year.
Yeah, well, I think he's one of those people that he's probably very good at managing his money, and he does just he doesn't do films for the paycheck. He does it because he really wants to do it, and because people want him to be in it. So, yeah, I imagine he's one of those people that is just perfectly comfortable not buying the $20 million house.
Oh, no, I don't picture like that at all. Yeah. I think he's probably super quiet. He probably lives in a very modest place, and he probably also negotiates a tremendous back-end deal for himself, which he deserves because, people go to the movie to see him. He is a box office draw, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm willing to see the next one that comes out with him in it, but I have no idea if I'll go to the cinema to see it or if I'll just wait till it comes out.
Well, I think it depends on what kind of movie it is. You know what I mean? Like if it's another epic film like Lincoln, I mean, it depends on what the topic is. You know what I mean? Or if it's another Paul Thomas Anderson, if this next thing is honestly this weird fashion thing, I don't know. But it just sounds frightening to me right now. An untitled Paul Thomas Anderson fashion project. It sounds like extremely terrifying.
I might be with you there.
Because I just think, oh God, like, will that even be able to air anywhere? Like, what is it going to be? An NC-17 rated fashion project? Like,
oh God, yeah.
I don't know.
Well, that's probably a good enough place to.
I think so.
Yeah. So obviously we want people to see The Fifth Element among other sci-fi things, and one of us doesn't want people to see There Will Be Blood. One of us does. One of us has no opinion one way or the other. But we are suggesting to see Lincoln. Definitely.
See Lincoln by default.
Or my other suggestion is just Google, Bill Hader doing I Drink Your Milkshake, because that's better than the whole movie There Will Be Blood. So.
Fair enough. I might actually do that.
You should.
Alright, well, we've definitely reached a part of the show where you get to tell us where people can find you, get a hold of you, all of that good stuff. So, how do you want people to find you?
Well, I'm on Twitter as One Raging Buddha, at One Raging Buddha, or you can find my blog, which is ragingbuddha.net, and of course I'm on the, as Honor likes to say, the award-winning Soiled Restroom Cinema.
Yeah, he never specifies what the award is.
I know.
That always gets me.
On the website, though. What the award was. It was like a best of something in 2012, or I can't remember because I wasn't on this show then, so I don't care. No, I'm just kidding. Joke.
Yeah,
but,
I get the feeling he has his own certificate put up somewhere.
Terrible, 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 horrible movies. And, we save you from seeing them. And that's, of course, at our website, signalsoffury.com, where you can tune into our weekly podcast. We're going to drag both of you guys in.
Just no more Sandler, please. That's all I ask.
Oh my God, if we did another, please. We try and stick to that rule, and then he keeps putting movies out on Netflix. And everybody's like,
you don't have to acknowledge them as movies, Nora.
I know, but it's like that's the number one requested thing. As soon as he pumps another movie out, we get like 4 requests, and I'm like, why I can't. It's so terrible.
What other one did you just do?
Oh, the one we just recorded, which is coming out for going up against the new Star Trek film, is Just My Luck with Chris Pine and Lindsay Lohan.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it is terrible with a capital T.
Terrible.
Like Honor basically said he was physically hurting from watching the film.
Oh my God.
Bad. I mean, there's really nothing super redeemable about that film.
Well, obviously, thank you very much for coming on, and as always, you can find ourselves at Blokebusters. just search Blokebusters, you'll find us.
Yeah, just Google it.
Yeah,
You're good.
We cover it in every other episode. At this point, can't be bothered. Just Blokebusters, we're there.
Absolutely.
So, one more time, thank you very much again, Nora, for coming on and doing this.
Thank you, Nora.
Thank you for having me. It was awesome. You guys are wonderful.
Well, thank you.
Likewise.
All right. Well, thanks very much, folks.